I'm Dennis, and this is a basic lesson on how to make Orgonite. Things we'll need: crystals, pans for molds, metal chips and pieces, fiberglass resin and hardener. One of the handiest things you can have when you're making Orgonite is baby powder. Coat your hands before you put on your protective gloves. I know you're going to wear protective gloves, right? Because this is not very good for your skin. One of the most common things that happens when pouring Orgonite is unwanted drips. That's where baby powder really shines. If you get Orgonite on your uncured fiberglass resin, on your gloves, or on your hands, put some baby powder on it, roll it up till it cleans itself off. You can save a whole lot of stickiness with one container of baby powder. Alright, there is no mystery about fiberglass resin. This is 12 ounces. To cure 12 ounces of resin at 80 degrees takes 10 ounces of catalyst per ounce. 12 ounces times 10 drops per ounce is 120 drops of resin, of hardener, to catalyze this much resin. Now you can count it out one drop at a time. If it's 90 degrees, you don't need 10 drops. 5 drops will be sufficient, maybe 6. If it's below 80 degrees, 10 drops will not be enough. If it's 70 degrees, you'll need about 15. If it's below 70, down to 60, you'll need almost 20 drops of resin to adjust for the temperature difference. If you're trying to cure resin in a cold climate, all you have to do is, after it's poured, put the Orgonite in a cooler to cure. That will keep the heat on the Orgonite. Alright, 120 drops of resin will catalyze 12 ounces. Just happens that the lid on this container is almost exactly 120 ounces of hardener, which is methyl ethyl ketone. Now we come to something that you need to be aware of. Once you put resin and hardener together and mix them, you're going to have vapors. If you are working indoors or any place there is not serious and sufficient ventilation, wear a mask. It'll keep you from getting sick. Alright, Jake, 3, 2, 1, stop. Mix the resin and hardener together and mix it thoroughly. It takes about 1 or 2 minutes of mixing to get a good batch all together. It will harden usually at prescribed amounts of resin and catalyst anywhere from 1 to 2 hours in this kind of heat and humidity. Whenever you use tools with making resin, it's great if you use plastic things that you can throw away. Alright, resin, crystal, metal. In this case, our metal is anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch in length and about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. This is ideal. This happens to be a mixture of brass and aluminum. And most importantly, it is oil-free. No cutting oils on the metal to keep it from bubbling up and making your Orgonite unattractive sometimes. It won't hurt the actual strength of the Orgonite, but if you're making more complex pieces, oil will be it'll be a detrimental factor. Alright, we have a muffin mold. The first thing you need to do, if you're going to use a metal mold, which I do not recommend, but sometimes it's all you can get, spray PAM or any other kind of spray lubricant in the pan first. If you're using a silicone mold, you do not have to spray it first. This is the Cadillac model here. Alright, here we go. A proper Towerbuster should weigh about 3 ounces. That's about 1.5 ounces of metal. A good sized crystal. And about 1.5 ounces of resin. After you pour the resin over the metal, it is always desirable to poke it around a few times to get all of the metal soaked with resin. It's a pretty thick consistency, and it's something you want to get thoroughly wrapped around the metal. Now, if you do not have a regular supply of metal in your area, as a temporary and short-term thing, you can take a copper scrubby and reduce it to the correct size. With tin snips or even home scissors will do this, giving you excellent copper, and you can control the size that you get. Copper, crystal, a little extra metal for good measure, and a little resin. Again, stir the resin and metal mixture. As it settles a bit, you may want to top it off. Amethyst crystals or citrine crystals are perfectly good substitutes for quartz. They are actually a quartz crystal. It's just a little bit of different minerals in them that give them the color. Again, pour your Towerbuster, stir it, settle down everything, and make sure all your metal is coated. And wait. I'm going to set these aside to cure. If you're interested in personal protectors, a mini muffin pan. Again, even though this one is coated in Teflon, it's a good idea to lubricate it. For personal devices, I prefer a double terminated Herkimer diamond. It takes up a considerable portion of the mold, but it's well worth it. When you use a personal protector size, you want very, very fine metal. A combination of metals layered is not unusual. And in personal devices like this, I usually add a little bit of kyanite, blue kyanite, or selenite, or both, in order to keep the crystal fresh and tuned up. Follow the same size with the mini muffin pans as you do with the full-size Towerbusters. And poke it around just a bit. Amethyst crystal. Resin. A little bit of metal. Set these aside to cure. This is a Walmart silicone muffin pan. Not quite as good as the other one, but again, easy to pop finished TVs out of, but they tend to wear out after a while. And we set these aside to cure. Also use paper cups as molds, but they must be paper cups. Plastic cups will melt from the heat of the curing resin. Paper cup, crystal, metal, and resin. Give it a stir, set it aside and let it cure. Makes just as good a Towerbuster as the muffin pans. And that's a quick lesson in making Orgonite Towerbusters with metal, crystal, and resin. Thank you. And here's your product. Towerbusters, about 3 ounces. Good enough for a single tower. I would like to acknowledge and thank John Croft for his invention of this particular use and this particular shape for Orgonite. Thank you. This is a short lesson on how to make an HA